Atlantic Ocean, upon me hills, to full country, to educate, elevate, and promote. Yeah, focus on Liberia, for Liberia, Liberia, for Liberia, yeah. From Monday to Sunday. From Monday to Sunday, it's focus on Liberia. Talk about home affairs, in diaspora, current affairs, reliable information. Education, entertainment, business, sports, advertisement, articulation. Focus on Liberia. Focus on Liberia. Focus on Liberia. From Monday to Sunday.
At Focus on Liberia, we discuss everything Liberia, from education to politics, arts and culture, entertainment, agriculture, history, religion, family, and technology. Focus on Liberia uncovers and showcases the best of Liberia and shows the world the truth about Liberia. We educate, elevate, and promote all things Liberia. We conduct interviews, panel discussions, debates, and more. Tune in to Focus on Liberia on Facebook and YouTube and be a part of the stories that make up the news.
This is Focus on Liberia, and I am Panelist.
And I am Asonisie, and a pleasant welcome to Focus on Liberia. Today is Tuesday, and we are here with another exciting edition of our programs here. Today's edition is something I am excited about. We have our panelists all seated and ready to go into this program. We are focusing on Liberia and Liberians. Oh yes. Today we'll be examining frequently made statements about Liberia and Liberians. And so I will now welcome the panelists for this very important discussion. The man, Jimmy Eastman, joins us from the nation capital, Washington, D.C. Jimmy, how you doing? Welcome.
Hey, Anthony. Yeah, it's a pleasure being here with this fine panel. And I hope what we will discuss today will give us light and educate our audience about things that we can do to improve the lot of Liberian and Liberians. Thank you.
Thank you, Jimmy. Also here to participate in a very important discussion is Dakanti. Dakanti, welcome to Focus on Liberia. How you doing?
Thank you. I'm doing well. It's good to be here with you all. I think tonight's conversation is one that's so important, especially as an intergenerational conversation. So I'm glad to be here and to have this conversation with all of the panelists.
All right. And seated and ready is Josh Brunel. Mr. Brunel, welcome to Focus on Liberia. How you doing, sir?
I'm well. Thank you for having me. Looking forward to having a good conversation.
All right. Focus on Liberia, new progressive commentator is Dr. Clarence Pearson, my good friend. Welcome. How you doing?
Thank you, Anthony. It's a pleasure to be on the show tonight. I want to say hi to my fellow panelists, especially Bilthena. It's nice to see you back on the show. I miss you a lot. And I say hi to all my wonderful people out there. It's a pleasure being in your living room on your radio. Thank you.
All right. We also want to welcome Langley, who is joining us from the great state of Minnesota. We share the same state. Brother, welcome. How you doing?
Kind of good. I mean, it has gotten to the point where we have to be discussing Liberia, living Liberia. I think it's my second time on your show. The first time was on the business section of it, okay, and I followed the conversation, and we got to the point where we need to inform our Liberian society. You know, there are a couple of things we did for Liberia for the last 10 to 20 years, and those things are dusted. They are on the shelf. And economic development of Liberia, social enhancement of Liberia, those things are on the shelf. And sorry to say, it's about time we start critiquing our ministers, our representatives, and whether they're delivering to the people or they just go there to put money in their pocket. All right. It has come to the time in Liberia where we have to be appraising ourselves.
Thank you so very much. We are happy to welcome you and folks in cyberspace. We want to welcome you to the very important discussion about Liberia. You, including me, have been hearing about some statements about us as a people and our country. We want to examine these statements because they speak to a broader issue than you think, how we conduct ourselves, how we live. And so we want to examine these statements to see whether, they are facts, they are realities, or just myth. And also we will look at other opportunities that we may have there. So some of the statements are like, number one, everyone in Liberia is corrupt. Is every Liberian truly corrupt? Some people say Liberians are corrupt. That is why we have now moved the needle here in terms of development, nationally speaking. Now, another statement that we hear all the time, all Liberians are responsible for this and the other. You may have heard there are some people who continue to argue that we are all responsible for the war that devastated our country, that each and every one had a role to play and contributed to what actually devastated our country. Is there any truth in that? Where is that coming from? We want to examine that today. Then there's this issue about the question of a work ethic. There are some people who hold so strongly that Liberians are lazy. Is that true? Well, the panelists are here. We also now forgetting this juicy one. Liberia is a lost cause. Nothing will change. I've heard this so many times. Danny and I were invited by a group in Atlanta, so I flew there and we went there and we met a brilliant young Liberian who said to me that, "Lord Anthony, I see you and Dennis, you guys trying to do your best, but I tell you this much, this country is a lost cause. Nothing going to change." And they don't stop there. Some people are saying every successful leader is the same and nothing going to change. Well, I will hold my thoughts. The panelists are here. Let's get into this. This is going to be an exciting discussion for us to reflect soberly. It speaks to the psyche of all. Maybe someone will argue. And so let's get started. Jimmy Eastman, he's been around. Jimmy,
yeah,
you heard the statements that I read. These are statements about our country and us as a people. Starting with the one that says everyone in Liberia is corrupt. Is that a true statement? Where is this coming from? Are there facts that support that statement?
Facts that support the statement. Well, let's see what has evolved. No, I can't. I will never believe that everyone is corrupt, but there may be a general practice, accepted practice in our culture where we tend to bend the rules or disregard the rules and allow ourselves to be compromised. The principles, our beliefs are not when steadfast. And I've noticed that this erosion of our very fabric of truth and virtue and all the beliefs we have has occurred since, greatly so, since 1980. That's when it started. Now, as much as it was 1980 was supposed to correct the ills of the Truic Party and the exploitation and the neglect and the selfish posture that many that the government had at that time. It did not. It also brought in another era.
Before you go to the history there, do you say you believe that is not true, that every Liberian is corrupt?
No, I don't believe that is true.
Okay, so I want to know from you why you don't believe that.
Well, there's always good and bad in all people. Generalization. Statistics will show. If you do a statistics, it's always show there's good and bad of all people. You always find some good, some bad. And why are some societies more prone to corruption? And that's what I was trying to explain. Sometimes there are circumstances that lend them to or exposes them to, especially poverty, exposes them to the greater temptation of being corrupt. And also what exposes them, not just the poverty, but the tendency, the norm of the society where it is normal to take a bribe. All these things tend to weaken the moral fabric of a country, and we tend to do it more and more. But to say that everyone is corrupt, I don't believe it.
Jermaine, finally, what is corruption for you? What's your understanding or definition of corruption?
Corruption is where levels of corruption. I want to generalize it greater, because before you become corrupt, before you could cheat the government, or before you start taking bribes, before you start stealing, these are all examples of corruption. But it starts when your principles, your moral principles, the thing that guide you, when that has become compromised, that's where corruption begins. And so all of us have had our principles and belief. We at one point or another during our trials and tribulations, we've come to a point that we kind of balk or we waver a little bit, but we erect ourselves. So that's where it starts. As soon as your moral code starts breaking down, that's when corruption starts. Right.
Thank you. And George, Mr. Brownell, it said man by nature is corrupt, and so this statement that everyone in Liberia is corrupt or Liberians are corrupt, is that true? If you look at this belief that man by nature is corrupt, is that what people are speaking to? I'm trying to understand what they really mean when they say everyone in Liberia is corrupt. They might have a meaning for that.
Okay. When I start, because you brought up the definition, Merriam-Webster defines corruption as dishonest.
There's feedback, so when you're not speaking, can you mute?
Okay.
All right, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm going to start with the definition of corruption. In Merriam-Webster dictionary, it says dishonest or illegal behavior, especially by powerful people, such as government officials or police officers. So corruption in Liberia is tricky. When you move here from a country that actually has systems in places, it shifts your perception on what corruption is. So when I lived in the US, how I viewed corruption was, it was a thing of powerful people. It was the thing that only people at the top or the super rich had access to. I think why people say that everyone in Liberia is corrupt is because everyone in Liberia has access to be corrupt or has access to corruption. Meaning, take a simple example like getting your license. Instead of someone going into Ministry of Transport, like how you will go into the DMV in the US, you can easily come across anyone who knows someone at MOT, and you'll feel more comfortable giving that person an extra $10 or $20 just to skip the entire process of going in there physically and doing your paperwork to get your license renewed or to get your car registration. So you don't have to be super rich in Liberia to indulge in corruption. And because the institutes don't necessarily have systems in play to help curb corruption, you end up kind of being, you end up being inconvenienced when you attempt to do things the right way here. So it's almost like you're forced to be corrupt. So I I don't believe that people truly have a decision, because even if you have the morale, even if you stand on integrity, the reality of the situation is if you go and try to do it the right way, it's going to be the long way and it's going to cost you way more. So you may as well just find something for someone, put it in their hand, and be finished with whatever you're attempting to do here. So that question is tricky for me. I don't feel like everyone is corrupt. I feel like a majority of the people are forced to be corrupt because the entire system is damaged.
So using your definition, you cited honesty, right? I mean dishonesty. If someone is dishonest, it's it's also an equivalent of corruption. Are you saying that you don't believe that some people in Liberia are dishonest? I know the statement is generalized, right? That Liberians are. So
No,
it's saying everybody in Liberia are dishonest, right? So I mean, everyone in Liberia is dishonest. So you don't believe that everyone in Liberia is dishonest?
Nah, there's a small percentage of individuals that aren't dishonest, right? But when it comes to you getting things done, not necessarily you working along with somebody, right? So your worker can be dishonest and steal from you. You can send them into the market. You can tell you the price for planting is different from the actual price that the market woman is selling for. But when it comes to being dishonest in getting things done within the actual system and not I don't even know how to describe our system as far as like people working underneath us, right? But if it comes to me getting documents from the government, if it comes to me trying to register something, and I'm an honest person, the odd thing about Liberia is that me being honest in this system does not benefit me. It would end up costing me more money trying to do things by the books than me going ahead and just bribing someone. So if I'm bribing someone, I don't feel like it necessarily erases the fact that I'm honest. It's just I can't bleed myself in a way where I'm just wasting money constantly trying to do things by the book. I had a friend recently, me and him just had the same conversation. You know, you try to do things the way that they tell you you're supposed to do it, but even when they're telling you that, it's to purposely inconvenience you just so you can spend more money.
Thank you. Deconte, I am troubled by this statement. Everyone in Liberia is corrupt. Is every Liberian truly corrupt?
Okay. So I don't believe in absolutes. So I don't believe that you can even say that every Liberian is corrupt. I think we can talk about corruption in terms of a public sector corruption that happens within systems. And then we can talk about interpersonal harms that happen within a society of people in which all of us are capable of committing those harms, right? Given what situation we're in. I want to go back a little bit. I know you asked a specific question. I think I want to contextualize my response to a lot of the questions that you're going to give. I think in order for us to answer and dissect where these myths come from, we first have to talk about what is the history of Liberia. And Liberians, us as a population of people, have not come to a consensus when it comes to were we colonized or not. And I emphasize this because to understand Liberia as a colonial project, to understand that we were indeed colonized, our responses to these myths that have come up about who we are as a people, it changes because we begin to understand how neocolonialism, how imperialism impacts our psyche, and how internalized oppression gives us images of ourselves that we then repeat to each other, right? Which is Liberians are inherently corrupt. Liberians are lazy. So if we don't have an understanding of that source of the history, then there's no way to source out where are these myths coming from and who do they serve, right? To say that a population of people are just simply inherently corrupt. Furthermore, I think also I said this in the FOL chat, the issue of a corrupt population is one that is not just unique to Liberia. We see most countries on the continent, and we also see in the global south, have dealt with what is corruption. And corruption is something I think that comes out of neoliberalism, to be quite honest. And when we think about its uses, within a neocolonial system, we know that it is oftentimes used against the global South. So when people think about a place like Switzerland, right, people would say Switzerland is not a corrupt nation, right? The people there are not corrupt. But then what do we know? Switzerland is the place that criminals go to, right? That is where people go to wash their monies. That is where politicians and even non-politicians who have stolen a bulk of money go there to hide their money. Would we say that as a society they have built their banking system on corruption? We would say no, right? But why is that? Why do we see the people of Liberia as somehow inherently corrupt in this way, but then we see the people of Switzerland as not corrupt? The same thing in the United States, right? That exists amongst people. Some of the stuff that George brought up. You see this in the United States too, corruption pervasive amongst people. And so I think when we force ourselves to believe that as a colonized, as an oppressed people, that we have tapped into some genetic predisposition of corruption that no other people have tapped into, we are just repeating propaganda about who we are. So the response is no. I don't think that Liberians are inherently corrupt. I think that Liberians, like all societies, are going to engage in harms with one another. I think that corruption in itself has to be broken down because the U.S. and other European powers has used corruption mainly against the global South. That is why you see mainly it's African nations and those in the global South who are at the bottom when it comes to the ranking of corruption. And then you see U.S. and European nations that are at the top, right? That when you look at those rankings. And then the last thing I want to add to this, some of what George brought up, is that we cannot take out capitalism, right? Capitalism breeds greed, and greed breeds what we consider to be corruption, whether it's embezzlement, whether it's bribery, right? People are not just engaging in that because there is some inherent evil that exists within our society, but the way that the society has been structured, everybody got to eat. I saw this in Liberia. So yes, I'm going to embezzle in order to eat, but that is because I'm trying to keep up with the system, right? In which capital, in which production is not, I don't have the power over that. So I have to figure out ways within the society that I'm able to feed myself. And that might be can you put some money under the table? It does not mean that it is correct, but I think for us to see it as an individual moral failing and not that corruption is a microcosm of neocolonialism and imperialism means that we once again other Liberians and see ourselves as some kind of non-human.
Well, thank you there, Dekamti. You know, what I'm hearing from you is Liberians are not inherently corrupt and that corruption exists everywhere. At some point, you mentioned that, well, this thing might be myth. But some people believe that these are realities, things that they live, all right? And if you look at it from our traditional settings, the way we were brought up, hey, this does not belong to you, you shouldn't take it. And if you do, then of course, that's corruption. But let me come to Langley here. Is corruption a character issue or a system failure or both?
As far as I will look at it, let's start from the individual family, all right? Then I'll give some paralysis on national level.
Yeah.
My experience in November while in Liberia, I go to Liberia, I do a lot of things. I noticed if you come from the States and in a home, anybody you send, they don't bring you change, all right? I mean, we relating to our family members and people in the house, but that's corruption, you know? Somebody send you to purchase something and there's a change left, you bring it. If the person wants to give you something, he will give it to you. That's why it's the norm that I grew up in every society in the 80s. Let's put war aside. Let's put war, civil war, everything aside. I was taught that when I go to buy something, I should bring a change. And that left with me for most of my life. And we saw in George Weah government, the little boy who the boy was given integrity award. Where there was a certain amount of money, I think, in an accident, all right, and he returned that money, okay? That's sincerity, all right? You got to learn to be sincere, okay? On a greater scope, Because of unemployment and the difficult situation in Liberia, it forces people to be corrupt. But yet and still, people are very sincere. I was surprised since I left Liberia when the people still work as far as 10, 11, 12 o'clock. I mean, trying to earn honest living. That I was very proud of by most Liberians. I mean, in the private sector, going and they need some help, and we got to be there to facilitate it to create wealth. Now, on a greater level, our governance structure is very, very corrupt and very disadvantageous. I'll give you 3 specifics. I studied it when I was in Cottington, studying survey of Liberian economy in my undergraduate program, and I still see it today. Couple of our major contracts are supposed to turn the economy around Liberia. 1, Firestone. Can you imagine 2025, we still producing latex. Wealth has not been created in Liberia. The latex is taken abroad and value addition is done and brought back. I don't know how we signed our agreement. We still doing it. Metal, steel. They're underperforming, and when they're deleting, they make it maximum. They're making millions out of Liberia for the last 20 years. I don't want for us to go backward. There's nothing a civil war. Let's forget about civil war. We are a stable country, politically, socially, and economically. We should be pushing ourselves. It goes to bad governance, all right? Both legislative, judiciary, and the executive. We need to streamline and appreciate ourselves. Just imagine, I got no business being in America, all right? But because I had the privilege of having a green card and for better opportunity, I come to the United States. Can you imagine people paying themselves $60,000, $70,000, all the legislature, all the ministers and the executives, and they go on generator with 95% of the people living in poverty? Poverty breaks ground. So when you do underemployment, unemployment, and underperformance, pray tell me, my man, somebody goes to work. The salary structure you get a person $200. There's no benefit. There's no social security, nothing, no guarantee. When a man goes to the job, the first thing he thinks, oh, immediately, so those enabling environment that perpetuate corruption needs to be changed, and it comes from good governance and leadership. I will stop there. I just want to share that. So they are able. I can say yes to that, and I can say no. I facilitate an answer for the no and facilitate the answer for the yes. But there are things we need to break through. Not make it a Liberian way. We are a country that have huge potential. And just to make it short, part of my mentoring when I went to Mauritius is an island place and the #1 country in West Africa. In Africa, the #1 economy in Africa. I was surprised that they don't have any resources at all, just an island place. Okay, they only own tourism. They're by far better than all. I was in there. There was no day current rent. There's no day basic social services. I mean, the people are employed, the economy, kind of good. I will just stop there.
Thank you. And Dr. Pearson, Decote mentioned or argue that Liberians are not inherently corrupt as others, want to portray that. And so I bring in this question: if Liberians are not inherently corrupt, is corruption an issue of character, system failure, or both?
Thank you, Anthony. I agree for the most part with what Deconte said, except that I'm a clergy, so obviously I must begin from the religious side of things. Spiritually, we are all have some defects that have caused us to become inherently corrupt and corruption, but that means having some moral shortcomings where we cannot be trusted. And we may lie or steal, not because we intentionally want to, but it's just part of our fundamental weakness as a result of our human deficit when it comes to spirituality. Having said that, then I will agree with disagree with Deconte in the fact that yes, we all as human beings, regardless where we are, whether in the great United States or anywhere else in the world, we are all to some extent corrupt. But the degree to our corruption is what we want to refer to, and the specification as to what type of corruption that we want to emphasize. And I think at this point we're emphasizing primarily political corruption. we all are political beings. As human beings, we get involved in being trusted with something of value, whether within our families, our community, or our country. And then there where the degree of corruption comes in. So to mention, I want to stress what Degonti said, which is very important. And that takes us to systematic corruption, Anthony, where we have this what we refer to as patrimonial behavior when we first started our country in Liberia, where people who thought they were escaping dominance in the West and going to find some freedom, Degonti will call them colonial projects, came and found wealth and found some freedom and found people they felt they could marginalize. And when they were entrusted, so to speak, not entrusted, but when they took charge of whatever inheritance and heritage that we had in Africa, in Liberia to be particular, they were not honest with what they were doing. I will give you one classic example. I can reference President William V.S. Tubman. President William V.S. Tubman is well known to have been one of those who had this hegemony in Liberia, that he kept the money in his house and had control over central bank, and he patronized people up in the interior. He patronized his officials around him, and because of that, he was able to prolong himself in power for that long. So in as much as he was able to contribute meaningfully to some developmental projects, but he literally patronized people from his pockets, and that's how he won their favor. And having said that, those structures that fuel that level of systemic corruption in our country has not left our society. Now, let me remind you, Anthony, when it comes to systemic pressure and societal norms in Liberia and it's fueling corruption, the political corruption. I'm not talking about the layman, talking about the big people stealing. Like Langley, right? He said the issue with the whole House of Representatives and even the executive. These are people who have come and met structures in place, Anthony, that was impressed upon us or put upon us by the colonial structure that were laid out, and they're still keeping it in place because the benefit. And I gave the example, the whole idea about autonomous agency, be it maritime, be it NPA and other institutions where you got handful of people call themselves board of directors and managers and managers and directors, however you want to call them, LPRC and things. These people control a vast majority of the revenue income of our country, but they classify that revenue stream as though it's their own private property, and they determine whether they will contribute to national budget or not. They determine what type of social corporate responsibility they will fund or not. And as a result, those monies go in private pockets and enrich private individuals, and they all become millionaires overnight. And there are other government institutions that we fund, like the national, we all know it, the NSA. All right. NSA is one place that money going to say for classified information, classified operation, 15 million, 20 million, and they can give no account for those monies. So yes, corruption is ingrained in our society, but I would say this, Anthony, in answering your question directly, I do not believe all Liberians are corrupt from the political spectrum. Like Degonti said, I believe we got good Liberians out there, people who got some moral values and stand for some integrity. And if they were given a choice to decide whether they would rob the country or promote their country's image, they would choose rather to promote the country than to rob it. But I strongly believe that we have a systemic issue of corruption because of a system of unaccountability, or however we want to call it, inaccountability or whatever, that is being perpetuated by rogues, bunch of rogues in our country. Yes.
All right. I give each of you a minute with this question. And let's start with you, Mr. Brownell. Are we able, as a country, is it possible for corruption to be minimized to the level where development can be able to flourish in our country, Liberia?
Yeah, it's possible. I believe we just need an overhaul of the current systems that aren't working. And maybe there needs to be deeper infrastructure established as far as like internet connection, people having access to electricity. It's easy to put systems in place that people aren't able to bypass. You just need the right individuals to build that system, and you'll see it work out itself. I feel like as long as the people at the bottom don't have access to override systems at the bottom, we can get further as a country. Like I said, when you live in a developed nation and your eyes are open, you're aware that, okay, corruption is a thing that the elite have access to. So I'm not saying it's okay, but we need to start with the majority of the people at first, find a way to mitigate it, and then move on up.
All right, Jimmy, how can we minimize it? Any suggestions you think that can help to minimize corruption in Liberia? Jimmy, you are muted. Unmute, please.
Thank you. Yes, definitely it can be. And Brunel alluded to it just now. You have to put mechanisms in place that will have punitive action against such behavior. Now, we've talked about it all the time on the show, that why is it the same Liberian comes to the U.S. and desists from corrupt practices, or at least reduces his activity in corrupt. For instance, I'm drinking alcohol. You know very well, if you drink in this country and you found swerving on the road, you're going to jail, and you're going to pay a pretty penny to get yourself out. So humans being by nature require some policing, and required to correct their actions or to change their actions. You have punitive measures in place that will correct them, or that will bear consequences, so they will change. Beside that, we can also promote being honest. Like I think it was Brunel again who gave the example of somebody who found money. It was astounding. I think this young fella found thousands of dollars or something like that, and he returned it to the owner. No one, that is impossible. It was incredible. It was like a miracle almost for me to hear that, because just like Langley was saying, you give somebody money to go buy something, and they don't bring your cheese. Now somebody will find thousands of dollars. As far as they're concerned, that's their blessing. This is a very common concept. When they take something from somebody illegally or behind them, they think that's blessing, So we don't have the structures in place that will correct this action, that will make people desist, both morally from their own conscience and then punitively from the negative consequences that they endure. Yeah, so that has to be put in place, and it will definitely start correcting things.
Langley, is it possible we can minimize corruption in Liberia? What are the things we must do, control measures we must put into place for that to be minimized in Liberia?
My proposition is just my technical opinion. It needs to start from the government of Liberia. Let's take, for example, look at how much you guys pay themselves, all right? Both in the executive, the judiciary, and the legislature, the kind of gasoline. We in that country where JFK, if you look at Liberia, sorry, I wanted to bring in Liberia in the 70s. Our system was very, very functional. But can you imagine those group of guys pay themselves? If all the taxes go to them and they're not accountable, nobody asks them from one government to another government, and they're making the country to look like only the country for political parties. It's wrong. The civil society, we need to be strong and tell them what political party you belong to. Health, care, agriculture, education, road construction, water and sanitation, those critical things that will improve people's life. It's about time that the civil society demanded of government. Every year, new government come, new government go, they invest and nothing is done about it. All right? It shouldn't be a contradiction like that. Our problem, for me, if Liberia is to improve, corruption in the governance sector, in all the governance sector in Liberia, has been the worst, and will continue to that. The guys don't know what to say, growth for our development. The guy will go that book on Liberia.
Langley, I need measures. I'm asking for recommendations. I'm asking for measures.
The recommendation is that,
to curtail that.
Firstly, our government needs to be audited, all right? value for money. Their requisition, the process
They
of
have
getting
been
money.
doing audits. We have part of audit reports everywhere. And
It has not.
it
The
has not
private
changed anything.
see it.
So I need
See
something
it.
more than just audit. Mhm.
See it. People have
Yeah.
not been prosecuted. People have not been penalized. If people are penalized, that would be the good example. But people are not penalized. All right. Court ruling in Liberia is a personal thing. You know, it's something personal. So the legal system has to be put in place where people can be prosecuted. And the prosecution system is very weak. If it continues to be weak, with square peg in the round hole, will continue to be in that square peg in the round hole. It's just my candid opinion.
Thank you. Dr. Pearson, you and I live in the West here. I don't think the people we live with are better human beings than us, for which corruption is not impacting their society and development as it is doing to us in Liberia. Control measures are in place, right? People don't have access to liquid cash as it is obvious in Liberia. What are the measures we must put into place, to control corruption and reduce it and minimize it?
Thank you, Anthony. In my opinion, I think we are in a very delicate position. First of all, I don't see any measure or any system that you put in place that will work, because from one individual to another, we've changed presidents so many times over 177 years, going to 178 or 79. We have had no significant change. And to make matter worse, and you've been following, Anthony, I know you've been following very closely. Now we are getting legislators rather, who are not only going into government, but are deliberately making laws to make themselves corrupt, to defend their corruption. They make laws to defend themselves when they offend the laws, and they make laws to protect themselves from any form of punishment or impunity, to stay in impunity. So what I think in my mind, and I'm doing something, I'm not sure if it's going to work, my fingers are crossed. I'm working towards an act, a proposed bill that I want to call the Liberia Patriot and Good Governance Act. And this is what I think we should do. I'm looking to make that act to, first of all, have politicians who are opting for public office to sign social contracts with their constituents, so that whatever they commit to, they are held accountable to those commitments. And not just that, but if they breach that commitment, they actually make a provision where they are able to recall that lawmaker if they feel unsatisfied with his or her performance. I'm looking for that act to also reduce the power of the presidency, so that we take that much appointing power from the president and spread it out to county level in a decentralization process, so that the president does not appoint houseboy and kitchen boy and everybody across the country, but that power be dispersed across the country, so that people are held accountable at the county level and not just waiting for central government. And last but not the least, I'm looking that our act will also remove that autonomous from across those autonomous agencies and make it accountable. Like, for example, we have the Bureau of how you call it, autonomous agency. Make all of them accountable to that bureau, and then that bureau supervises all of their operational and financial budgeting and spending, so that it's not left to individual boards of directors who are giving conflicting rules and policies over the place, but we can have a consolidated idea how we run our country and secure our revenue. So those are some of the things I will be proposing in that bill. I know it's going to be hard, but that's what we're going to do, Anthony. I'm going to make that bill in a way that the next election, 2029, that I will campaign across the 73 districts in Liberia, electoral districts in Liberia, to make sure that constituencies will not endorse anyone who does not sign against a social contract, and that social contract will ensure that they sign that bill into law.
And Dr. Pearson, you are talking about the very politician who put their hand on the Bible when they're taking office, and then they don't do anything.
Yeah, that's why we need the social contract. The social contract, in my mind, Anthony, will commit them to that bill. because I know they will not pass it willingly, but it will commit into that bill that upon taking office, if they don't adhere to that social contract, we're going to go after it in the court of law to get it removed.
Yeah,
All
but
right. Go.
Dr. Pearson, you must know that there are other laws too that give these guys immunity. All right. For example, they can be judged by their peers. Their peers have to support it. Or the legislature, they have to support it. So every law has its own, has its own challenge. There are other laws too, the guys can argue with. All right. So you got to think on that.
Thank you. And the thing is, these are people that put their hand on the Bible, right? And in Liberia, the people respect the Bible so much. They pretend to respect God so much, and they don't do anything God tells them to do. But let me come to that country so we can, because if these people can respect the very Constitution, all right, they have taken oath. These people pass law, they don't even respect the very law. The legislature passed the law that talk about the Code of Ethics law of Liberia. They passed it that they should declare their asset before they take seat. Something that simple. Declare your asset before you take your seat. They pass it. None of them, not a single one. Anyway, let's leave it. Nekonti, what can we do to minimize corruption?
So I'm going to take a little bit of a different route than everybody, because I think that you all have covered in terms of discussing Liberian politicians and legislative concerns. And you all know that I am someone that turns to look at systems, right? And so the first thing I would say is we need to look at how do we actively dismantle capitalism within our country. I want to define capitalism because whenever we have these conversations, there's a feedback coming back. I think someone has to mute themselves. Whenever we talk about capitalism, there tends to be 100 different definitions that float around, and I want to be specific. So I'm defining capitalism as an economic system that allows private individuals to own and control the means of production, banks, factories, mines, forests, and accumulate wealth from the labor of workers who receive less than the value of their labor. Capitalism, as I mentioned before, breeds corruption, right? Because capitalism breeds greed. Economist John Maynard talks about this concept of the animal spirit, right? Where he says that capitalism breeds this thing of the animal spirit. And what he refers to as the animal spirit is corruption. And so we cannot begin to talk about how do we stop corruption in our country. And of course, we talk about the politicians and so forth. But then we don't talk about the systems that make it all possible. We don't talk about something like a Firestone. Firestone in itself is a huge example of how corruption exists in Liberia, right? And so what you have is a corporation like Firestone that is paying people pennies that take the land and exploit and extract wealth out of people, right? That is a system of corruption that breeds corruption within a country. I think Dr. Pearson actually talked about what happens when the way in which the founding and the making of a country is steeped within what we would consider to be corruption, right? And how do we get out of it? And so for me, when I look at something that like the Alliance of the Sahel states, and I look at what are some of the things that Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso are trying to address in their countries, how they're addressing poverty, how they're addressing things like corruption within their government officials, what I see them attempting to do is to hit at capitalism and how it is existing in their country, right? We have seen a creation of jobs and factories and so forth in terms of Burkina Faso. Of course, we have seen an emphasis on politicians being paid less, what kind of cars that they drive. We have seen even the president himself talk about the importance of him lowering his own salaries. And all of that is an example of how do we impede upon how capitalism decides who gets to get paid, who doesn't, whose labor is extracted from, who isn't, who gets to have wealth. And then I even think about something as small as like in Liberia, we have things like houseboys and housegirls. And when we talk about how corruption breeds itself, right, where people have oftentimes children or people working in their homes that they pay pennies to take care of their children, to run and get their water. You have gate boys, right, where you have people at your gates opening your gate. They're being paid little to no money to do so. While I was in Liberia, I oftentimes had to give these people food and have them sit at the table and eat with me, because we're in a system in our country where we believe that the people that's opening our gates or the house girls and house boys do not deserve to sit at the table and eat with us, right? That they need to go figure out themselves. Those are the things that breed greed. Those are the things that breed corruption. So of course, when you have a situation where you give a family member $50 and they're supposed to bring the change back, oftentimes those people, that it is not, yes, I think we can talk about morality and character all we want to, but putting people in a binary of good and bad without talking about the conditions we have put them in. If the only time I'm about to see $5 is by not giving you your change, right? If you have family members who are coming from America, I'm working like a dog in your house, right, as a houseboy or house girl, and you give me whatever, and I take $5 out of it to be able to go get some food. I had another girl, I stayed in a guest house in Liberia. She didn't even have money to be able to buy her child's food, to buy the diaper. So yeah, she's going to take that $5 and she's not going to bring that change back. We can talk about morality and character all we want to, but that is the condition that has been created in the country as a result of capitalism. So I am who am benefiting, right, from her labor. I cannot be mad at her for taking my $5, because at the end of the day, the work that she's doing in that house is she's not even getting paid a fraction of what she should. So I think as a society, we tend to focus on these large overarching, yes, of course, the government and so forth. But then when we talk about capitalism, we talk about how capitalism is sustained in our country. We talk about the extraction of labor, who is at the bottom. We talk about issues of classism. Then it's like all of a sudden everybody is like, hold up. Now you want to take away my houseboy? Yeah, I want to take away your houseboy, because that is part of corruption. That is breeding corruption.
Thank you, Deconti. I agree and I disagree. I agree that the circumstances that people
can I respond to that? Yeah, can I respond to that before we go further?
We're closing on this issue. We got other issues to go to. I agree that the circumstances that people face, the condition or they're being constrained to face, would tempt them to want to do so. The example you gave about the person who was practically working like a slave, paraphrasing there, in your house, and then you give the person $5 or maybe $10 to go buy something, and they try to take the change. Why can't a person just ask for it? Why can't they ask for it?
Should I respond?
And we are talking about people who believe that God said that shall not stay. Why can't a person ask for the $5? All right. So I believe strongly that conditions can compel people to do things that they won't do, but they also have conscience that you can ask and it can be given to you. And then the other issue about capitalism also, promote greed, and greed will lead people to engage in corruption. That is true. But it's not only capitalism. It's just about any system, all right, that kind of minimize people opportunity. Some people will be tempted to go otherwise. It doesn't matter whether it's capitalism, communism, whatever the system is. Let's bring in Mr. Ducle here. Mr. Ducle, right now we are at a point where can corruption be minimized in Liberia? How is this doable? What are your thoughts? How can we do it? Unmute, please. Unmute.
Yeah, thank you. I think we have discussed this this subject quite extensively. But look, at the end of the day, you cannot eliminate corruption.
No, we said minimize.
Yeah, with that said, corruption can be minimized to a point where it wouldn't have the kind of an effect that we see happening now. Mm-hmm. And I think some of the things that we need to put in place to minimize corruption, we do have some of them, but we are lacking leadership to make sure that those laws are implemented and followed. I'll give you a very simple example. When you are hired here in the United States or any developed country, when you are hired, the process of hiring you and putting you on the payroll is laid out probably anywhere from, let me speak from my personal experience when I worked for the federal government here. The process takes about 90 days. So from the day you are told you are hired to the day you actually show up for the job, it takes about 90 days. And those 90 days, all you do is you fill in documents, you sort of read the rules, what to expect and why not, and the consequences for certain things and why not, all the things that you need to know before you start your job. And so in Liberia, some of those things have been put in place during Ellen Johnson Sirleaf time and maybe shortly before that. And they are not being followed. They are not being implemented. And the GAC is one example. The GAC is supposed to be an agency that helped to bring about efficiency, to bring about accountability, as well as to curb corruption, because then people will be asked to account for whatever funding that was allocated to their departments. And so these are all mechanisms that are supposed to help, but it takes it takes leadership to make sure that those things are put in place. So I was just talking to somebody last night, and the person said to me, this year most of my grades are going to be incomplete. And I said, why? She said, because I was put out and then I don't have money to give to the teacher who's supposed to give me the requisite grade that will, so to make me pass.
What I want is list for me the measures we can put in place. I don't want you to explain the circumstances.
No, but
measures we can put in place to minimize corruption.
Yeah, Anthony, I just told you some example, and I mentioned GAC as one agency that can help to minimize corruption, because GAC is supposed to be the agency that will audit, and you have the anti-corruption agency that
are part of audit reports. So audit is not helping us right now.
So because the reason why we are not being helped by those agencies, we have not had people who has the leadership quality that those agencies requires. Because I mean, you can have all the books, all the laws on the book.
Don't have people, or are they not hiring those kind of people?
Sorry, what was your question?
It said that we don't have those people, or it said that they are not hiring those people.
We don't have them, and they are not being hired. So
are you sure we don't have them?
Well, I mean, what's the point? I mean, what good would it do?
If you say we don't have them, are you saying we don't have those kind of people with the character who exhibit the kind of behavior you think they need?
Yes, we don't. No, yes, we don't. We don't, because
but we have you. If you were to be sent there, you think you would not do that job the way it should be done? We have you.
No.
All right.
No.
So, any other thing you think we can do to minimize corruption besides the two you listed?
Yeah, and you can also introduce legislation, and this legislation should support and reinforce the already existing laws that we have on the books. Again,
rules of legislation that has been passed into law, and they are not helping. So the issue is not legislation. Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah, but if you listen to me earlier, Anthony, I said leadership. You need leadership. Leadership and leadership, because you can have all the books, all the laws on the books. You can have all these rules in place. Look, I will tell you something, Anthony, and the reason why I say leadership, the example of the Sahel is one practical example of leadership.
So where has this leadership curtail corruption? Give me an example where leadership was brought to bed in a very decisive way and corruption got minimized and conditions changed. Give me an example.
Rwanda is a very good example.
Okay.
Rwanda has shown to the world that if you have the requisite leader in place, you can curb corruption. And that's one. And Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger have also proven that to us.
All right. Thank you. And folks, if you are just joining us, this is Focus on Liberia. My name is Anthony C. hosting. We are discussing, issues or statements actually that have been made about Liberia and Liberians. So we are examining frequently made statements about Liberia and Liberians. Well, let's get back to it here. One of the things people say, one of the statements is that, well, Liberians are lazy. Then someone said, well, others say Liberia is a lost cause. Nothing is going to change. Every successive leader is the same. Then there's the other one where people think that all Liberians are responsible for just about anything. We had a terrible war. Some people actually who opted for the war as a way of changing the system, and so many children had no clue. I had no clue. I didn't play any part. But some people are making the argument that, well, everybody somehow play a part. I happen to disagree. So let's continue with the conversation here. Are Liberian lazy? Is Liberia a lost cause? Will every leader we have or we get be the same? Let's start with you, Langley. Is our country a lost cause? Unmute there.
Yeah, I would say no. From my experience, the civil society, from what I saw in November of last year, they are very industrious. I saw people with their goods and services from Monrovia. I went as far as Nimba. They're trying to do their best to earn honest living. All right, they work hard. Okay, they are hardworking. They're not lazy. Majority of the population, they're not lazy. I don't experience them being laziness from my last time in Liberia in November. Honestly, the challenge that they don't have the enabling environment in terms of good governance structure. For example, the issue of basic services, road, water, sanitation, things that are supposed to be facilitated by national government. It's minimum. All right, and that's a challenge. But the people are hardworking.
So you disagree completely that Liberians?
I disagree from what I saw in Liberia. I disagree. The people are hardworking. The civil society, they're trying to make ends meet. They are very industrial. People stay as far as 12 or 1 in the morning.
But like we see some people leaving the counties where they could be doing some farming, and they come to Monrovia, and practically they have no job. I've seen people playing checker, and there's practically nothing to do, and they just sit in Monrovia. I see homes, and there's dirt part behind their houses, and those dirts are not being cleaned. I've seen a lot of things that indicate that, well, can this be laziness? I see people show up to work. They all sit in the hallway and they have no responsibility, but they're there.
No,
is that not laziness?
Carelessness. The issue of sanitation is just full help. I mean, you got to push-pull factor, as we call it in development. People who now have not come up in the city, there's a huge transition. People from in the interior, people just go in the bush to east and south side of the city. That you find a bucket of people because of the civil crisis, they kind of mislocated in the city. But there's a lot more challenge if we have worked on our sanitation and health services through the Ministry of Health and Social Welfare. A pragmatic service could have helped, but now the government, who should be leading the way through the Ministry of Health, they are not facilitating it. So you find because of the lackadaisical attitude, you got more people onto unhealthy habits, all right, than to healthy habits, all right. Those are the social and realistic, in my opinion, tend to be corrected. Those are the realistic.
The statement that Liberia is a lost cause, it will never change. Where do you stand?
Pardon, please go over that.
The statement that Liberia is a lost cause, it is not going to change. Nothing going to change.
No, I don't believe in it. I don't believe in it.
It's been 179 years now. Rwanda came from behind us. Ghana came from behind us. Burkina Faso is going with terrific speed.
I would take it.
Guinea is doing better. And we are lacking behind in everything. We can't boast of electricity. We can't boast of water. We can't boast of road. We can't boast of. There's nothing we can be proud of in terms of development.
Anthony, I take it and take me on the record as of today's date on this show. We've been coordinating the civil society in the States and back in Liberia. Liberia, we're going to have a robust private sector that we're going to influence government to make Liberia to be where it has to be. We're not going to be spectators. In every sector, in every profession in our country, we're going to take the leadership, whether you're in government or other government or abroad.
I've
We're
heard
going to
this
make our
statement
country
before,
better.
Landia. I've
Pardon?
heard this statement. I've heard this statement before.
I'm telling you, I say, put me on record on today. Liberia has to improve in the next maybe 10 to 15, 20 years. We're going to be all involved. We're not going to be spectators, whether in the private sector, whether in the public sector, or whether in non-for-profit. Our country has so much huge potential, especially, the only country I didn't really go in Liberia was Lofa. The whole stuff is in there. You see huge for agriculture, you see the land is just green, vegetation. What happened in there? There's no except the roads are not good. All right. So I'm telling you, we have to work together. I'm not going to shift this blame to somebody or some generation. I'm telling you, you put me on the record, we're going to work. Our country will be better in the next 10, 20 years. I tell you for a fact.
Thank you. That is what I've heard from the time we're born. We will, and we are still. That appears in you are Liberians. You gone to Liberia recently. I'm just from there. You've seen people in the street trying to hustle. Some people believe that Liberians are lazy. Do you believe that Liberians are lazy or not?
Anthony, thank you. I believe Liberians are lazy, and I'll tell you why. Liberians are lazy because we've made them lazy. It goes back to what Delphina was saying, the colonial and imperialistic influence of our country for over 135 years. I mean, before the indigenous people took over, was a society of handout. I told you that. President Torba, President Tutman, they all did the same thing. They let people out of government and they gave them handouts. They went and took their children and brought in the community in their home, and they worked for them, told their children bucket, and then they sent them to school and left the people in the village to farm. For our people, farming is not work. Farming is just a natural part of the daily activities. Yes, somebody saying our people are strong because they can farm. No, for them, farming is not work. It's almost like you wake up in the morning and you get up and you take it out of your house, you clean your house. They ate from the backyard. People ate from the backyard. It was the daily sustenance. It was not for how you call it, exportation or whatever the case is. It was farm to muff kind of a lifestyle. And when you look at Liberia, you find that same colonial dependency syndrome that cut across, where people of Liberia today, they rather beg from day to day than to do a business that is sustainable, that will sustain them. They rather beg you than to maintain a job. Typical Liberian men will not maintain a job for more than 2 years. Anthony, go check and tell me if I'm wrong. After 2 or 3 years, the man run off from the job, he hang around a little bit, drink some beer, and then when he get rough again, goes back again, go try again.
That appears I'm a Liberian. I am in the US. I've been working at my job for 15 years now.
Then Anthony, I'm not talking about abnormally. I'm not talking about abnormally. Now there are few Liberians who are hardworking. I'm not disputing that. I'm look at the level. The food guy comes to Liberia, right? Mm-hmm. Let me give you a typical example of food guy on one of my lands in my backyard. Mm-hmm. Someone called me on the phone. One guy who normally sell land over the people, he called me on the phone. Say, oh, that appears somebody's trying to sell your land. So I'm like, my man, what do you mean by that? I got people looking after all my lands in Liberia. So then I call someone on the ground. The person tells me, oh no, nobody trying to sell land. There's a food guy who has a tea shop on your land. And this food guy has been protecting your land from being sold. So obviously, those guys who call you want to get this guy off the land, and then they will sell it. So I came and saw the food guy in a zinc shack. So I interacted with him. I was impressed with what he told me. So I went to my counselor, and we wrote a paper, and I gave him authority to be on the property. And then not only authority to be on the property, but he also can give other people spot to be there and do similar thing he's doing if you're going to some daily bread. Today that guy got shop, Anthony. The guy was on that spot. Now he owns a land, and he built a shop on the land. He built right by my land as well. So, but mind you, all the other Liberians around there, when I drive there, they still ask me for $5 or $10. This food guy has a shop, and now he employs some of them in the community. And that goes across Liberia. Because I see it right in this country I'm in, Anthony. I know a vast majority of Liberians who only work because of the system that constrains them to stay on the job, or if they don't have a job, they will not have a home. So they must work. If push comes to shove, they become a liability on girlfriends. and
That
grain
person,
become a better day on offer.
will you also say, because you get from Liberia, you see Keke Riders, you see Pimpin Riders, you see Tessie Riders, you see Yanam boys along the road. They are selling. Some of them are getting early. When I was in Liberia, I saw cold water. We used to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning to go buy the ice to make the water. Do you think Liberians are really lazy? These are people that are resilient, that try to survive every day. We see them in the street. Go to Relay, see our mothers, see our sisters, see our brothers. They are trying to hustle. And you say they're lazy?
No, I mean, I think that's a fair point you raise, and I think I should respect that point. I would not say that because I see them driving pimping, or I see them along the road selling, that they are not lazy. I would say you're making a fair argument, but this is what I would say to you, Anthony. A Liberian man who drives a pimping, by the time he made $2,000, you were packing. A typical Liberian boy will pack it. As soon as he made $2,000 or $3,000, he will pack the pimping and go blow it up, and then he come back to ride again. I mean, it's honestly, that's the reason why, even if you bought the pimping and give it to them to run, they run it, they put money in the pocket, and they don't bring you your reporting money. I bought a taxi to run. My first car I bought, I'm making a taxi. I bought a black and white copy boy. I put a data reporting $1,000. The guy reported 2 days. The third day he said the gas gauge was not working. He requested $1,000 from me. After 2 days, the $2,000 he gave me the first 2 days, I lost the $2,000 because, when I took it and look at myself, nothing was wrong with the car gauge. After I took the car and gave to a second person, they called the guy car killer. I did not know. The guy took my car and running Buchanan in less than 1 week. By the time we get the car, the chassis was broken. The whole back of the car was dragging the ground. The exhaust was broken. I came to the garage. I got vexed. I said, I want the car again. That's a kind of Liberia we're talking about. So I'm not saying people are not attempting to show that they want to work, but people who really desire work and are hard working, you see progress in what they do. And I think, as I said, there's a foundation for why they do what they do. I agree, but can we be better? Yes, we can be better. Liberian men go to work today, Dennis. Anthony, the men go to work at 10 o'clock when he's supposed to be there at 8. He wants to leave at 2:30 to 3 when he's supposed to leave from there at 4 or 5. The man goes to lunch at 12. He doesn't come back until around 2.
That's laziness for you.
That for me, that's laziness. That's how I quantify it.
All right. I think Jimmy may have a disagreement here, and Jimmy, please don't disappoint me.
Definitely.
All right.
What you're describing is a vicious circle. Okay, if you're lazy, all right, you will not be very enterprising. As a result, you're to get you out of the situation, who's going to be responsible? Who's responsible for that? You are responsible. So that means, since you're lazy and you're responsible, it's hopeless to think you're going to go anywhere. But so I understand that whole vicious circle. That's why those three questions they relate to each other. But the thing is, we have to break a mold. We're used to doing things in a certain way, and until we break that mold, it will continue. I don't want to say it's cultural, but it has become normal for us to behave in the way we should. If we're pressed, if we're jammed that we have to survive and we have to switch our mode, like so many of us who have had the opportunity to join these different societies, you will find out that we'll change. We'll break the mold. But what is going on back home, there's not been enough cultural change or behavioral change so that our people can break that mold and become by far more industrial, by far more responsible for their livelihood. Now, I just wanted to ask one thing, because I heard Decanty talk about capitalism. Now, I would ask the question: does capitalism cause corruption, or does it enable it? Because I've seen how communism worked from an embassy point of view. I've seen them dress exactly the same suit, the driver, the cook. You wouldn't know who's who. But I saw them move away from that mode. So, different systems, they can work if you have the right mechanisms in place to self-correct, So that's what we need. We need to break this mold. We need to put some mechanism in place, and it can come from the leadership or it can come from a movement. I thought when they did 1980 would have been a new movement, but it wasn't. It was just the same thing, only different people were doing it.
And
So,
Jimmy, the other aspect is that is our country a lost cause?
No, it's not a lost. It's the hopelessness you're talking about. The lost cause is the hopelessness. We're lazy, so and then we have to. The only way we get out if we are responsible for where we are, and since we don't want to change, we are the lost cause. No, we have to break the mold. We have to. There has to be something that will cause us to stop this attitude, the big shot attitude, where I just want to be rich in the government. The government doesn't have money, but I want to sit down up there and make exorbitant salaries. Then you must pay for my gas, you must pay for my house and everything else. That is a exploitative stature where you know very well the country doesn't have money, but because you're in position, you exploit the situation and with your power. And those are the kind of things that have to change.
And Jimmy, our leaders lazy, all of them. Our leaders lazy.
I think they're just selfish.
You think they're not lazy?
No, they're just selfish. You know, your selfishness can lead you to being lazy because you don't want to do anything. You're only thinking about yourself.
So in other words, they are lazy, right? It doesn't matter what makes them lazy. I'm asking the question, are our leaders lazy? And you said no.
I'm looking at the cause. I always look at the cause, the source, the root of the problem.
There will always be a cause.
The root of the problem is not laziness.
I look at the cause as temptation that you don't have to yield to. And so the simple question is, are our leader lazy? And you said no, they are not lazy. So tell me, if they are not lazy, I want to see the product of their hands. I don't see it. Do you see it?
No, I do not see enough. I'm not going to say it hasn't been any, but there's not nearly enough for us to lift ourselves from out of this impoverished state we find ourselves in right now.
Thank you, Jimmy. Dagonte, I want to hear your thoughts. Are Liberians lazy? You went to Liberia, you see the resilience, you see the challenges, you see the conditions, rain or shine, people are in the street, they're trying to survive, they're trying to do something with their hands. You see Liberians here in the United States, in other parts of the world, our leaders, what they try to do to improve conditions, our parents, our brothers and sisters, our traditional leaders everywhere. Are we lazy?
Well, I'm going to start by saying no. I don't believe Liberians are lazy because I have seen with my own eyes the ability of our people to labor. Most of Liberians work as laborers, right? We don't really have a lot of blue collar or white collar jobs in Liberia. I have seen Liberians make bricks with their own hands, right? I have seen Liberians at 6 a.m. The streets are bustling with people out there hustling, right? And so to say, so no, I don't believe. I want to, y'all know, once again, I want to contextualize. Christine Jeske has a book called The Laziness Myth. And in the laziness myth, she particularly talks about South Africa, the Zulu people, and how the concept of laziness were used against South African farmers. And what that concept does is that it says unemployment and poverty is a moral failing of a particular class, ethnic group, or racial group, right? And so what it takes is it skirts around power and access and capital as conditions for poverty. And instead it says that this is as a result of a moral feeling because you're lazy. And this concept of the lazy Liberian, Patricia Hill Collins, who is a Black feminist and womanist scholar, has an essay she wrote that she talks about the concept of controlling images. She focuses on Black women in particular. What are the controlling images that came out of slavery? So we see the image of the mammy, the Jezebel, the welfare queen, and the sapphire, right? And a lot of people, even during slavery, that was a myth, once again, that slaves were lazy, right? Lazy also, I think a lot of, anyway, let me not go there. And so what Patricia Hill Collins says is, we have once again been fed these controlling images of ourselves where people debate, okay, are Black people, are Black women welfare queens? Are they lazy? Are they mammies? Are they Jezebel? And all of that stems out of slavery. And here we are having the very same conversation again. To be frank, I find this particular question and conversation a bit frustrating, because what does it mean in a country like Liberia to say that the people are lazy when most people in Liberia do not own the means of production? When most people in Liberia are toiling the lands at Firestone, are on plantations, literally working day and night, where disabilities are being manufactured. When you think about the process of tapping rubber, there is no laziness in that. When you think about the concept of people building homes and building structures without any kind of the same materials that you have in the United States, they're doing so with their hands. You think about children who are out selling food out in traffic. Even I saw that the concept of farming as something that is not work. Yes, of course, our people are land people, but farming is labor work. That is laborious work. That is also part of why slavery was created, for us to come to the US and do the work of producing things like cotton and so forth, because they needed a population of people who could be exploited and to be able to do so. So when we say Liberians are lazy, where is that controlling image coming from? It is the same controlling image that told us that the slaves were lazy, right? That Black people in the United States are lazy, and that is why they don't make it, right? But what it does, it's like Reaganomics and the concept of pull yourself up by the bootstraps, which is that it is a moral failing on an individual if they are not able to find jobs, if they are poor, if they cannot feed their children, that somehow they have participated or done something wrong in their life that have gotten them there, versus that the systems and structures that they have been handed is the reason why they're here. Nobody wants to be poor. I don't know about y'all, but nobody wants to be poor. Nobody wants to be hungry. Nobody wants to not have a bed to sleep on or to have to walk. I mean, you think about the market women. My grandmother is a market woman, and I see her waking up in the morning and going to go sit in the sun. That is not laziness, right? And so I don't know where we have manufactured these ideas. This is part of political consciousness, right? And this is part of why I tell people, we got to go read The Pedagogy of the Oppressed, because clearly these controlling images comes out of internalized oppression, to see yourself as an oppressed group of people as lazy when the exploitation of the world relies on you working. Firestone relies on you working. Sasala rubber plantation relies on you working. So how can you actually be lazy when foreign corporations are coming to your country to extract labor out of you for their wealth? So who is the actual lazy one?
Thank you. And you have a very strong and passionate disagreement with Dr. Pearson. Yeah, Dr. Pearson, you got to be ready for the debate. I don't want to participate, but I share this much with you. I've seen my father, a fisherman, waking up 3 a.m. to go on the sea. It's dark. And he will find a way to get on the Atlantic Ocean in the night. And he will be gone for the entire day and return in the night. And he's prepared to return the next day. Tell me the Liberian man or woman is lazy. I have my disagreement, but I'm moderating. Young man Bramel, you are a young Liberian. Are you lazy? Are your people lazy?
You have lazy people and strong people in every society. When it comes to how things are done here in Liberia, what people don't acknowledge or talk about is this aspect of micromanaging people who are underneath you. You're blessed to come across a worker who can go above and beyond and be innovative when you give them a task. So if you have a group of people working for you, let's say you have 10, maybe 1, maybe 2 of those individuals will actually think outside of the box and be innovative with the task at hand. So as I stated when I first started, every society has lazy people, every society has innovative people, or what we would call strong people. I'm not going to generalize and say all Liberians are lazy. I think in the past on this show, we laughed about this topic, but I can only give my personal experience as someone who has a farm in Liberia, as someone who lives in Liberia. And I also want to point out, sometimes we speak on these experiences, but we only come and visit for 2-3 weeks. We don't fully understand what's going on here because we aren't immersed in the culture. We aren't on ground long enough to have a legitimate outlook or a legitimate opinion on what's going on. The reason I wanted to come in earlier when Decanty was speaking, I love hearing her talk, but when it comes to this whole people having house girls, gate people, what we don't talk about is the fact that if somebody is your security and working in your yard, you're responsible for that man's children, you're responsible for that man's wife, you're responsible for everything in his life. And that's not by force. This is something that he opts into. This is somebody that'll come to you and ask you for work and bring the problems along with it. Now, how you treat the person is based on your own character. That's the reality of it. Is a reason why you might go to somebody else's house and they're disgruntled and they're just mean. They might just be a mean person. It doesn't have anything to do with the people who are working underneath them. Under all of that, and I'm speaking as somebody who stays here, under all of that, that person might just be a rude individual. Like, you don't, people don't have picks, you know? Let me not say that people have picks in Liberia, but we can't keep generalizing it and pushing this narrative where these people who work for us are almost like enslaved in this new age slavery. What other trade is there for the person to do? I'm speaking from my own experience. I pay my house lady more than what everybody else pays their house lady. I can call my security inside of my house right now, and he'll attest to that too. And I bet you, I'll do y'all one better since we're on the show. I want y'all to see something. I can bet $1,000 that the man that's supposed to be washing my house right now is sleeping, and he never. And then I will ask him if I cussed him out, whether or not we eat together. All of that. No security. Eman, you sleeping? You sure? Oh man, you sleeping all right? You sleeping, Eman? When the road jump over the gate, how you will see them from inside there? Okay. But Eman, let me ask you something. Eman, let me ask you something. How long you been working for me? 2 years plus. I ever cussed you before? No. Okay. I know you can sleep in sometime and come outside here and turn my generator off myself. Right? Mr. Muhammad, you was sleeping, Jana. You know how you looking at me upstairs from inside our place, bro? Okay. Anyway, my security got bathroom, access to running water when they come to the job, and he got an area to sleep. So I don't like that whole notion that people are treating all that work is bad here in Liberia. That guy doesn't have running water at his house.
You're not supposed to put somewhere for him to sleep. You're not supposed to get a man place to sleep if the man's supposed to be on guard duty.
This is the when
the man on guard duty, then you get him a bed to sleep in.
Can I 1 minute after George or 30 seconds? I don't want to interrupt you, George.
This is the whole thing. Why don't we just sacrifice and come back home and figure it out? We can't visit here with the savior complex and think that we're able to change things in 3 weeks and with a few books that we read. We have to live here and be amongst our people and show them the way. First of all, this notion that everybody has this ability to just access this grand lifestyle, that we all want to just have the best life in the world. Man, if I go ask E-Man right now, he's not even worried about owning a car. That's not something that he thinks about. These are Western outlooks on life, where when you live here in Liberia, you realize like, yo, this person doesn't want that much. There's only a handful of hungry people in the world who can sit here and tell you, yo, you know, in the next 5 years, I'm gonna have a 500-acre farm. My farm is gonna be producing X, Y, Z. Now I know why your security is content with whatever you pay him. He sleeps half the job. No, actually, I pay him more than what he will receive anywhere, bro. So let's not get into that.
Thank you.
And I can get, once again, I can go back outside and he can tell you how much he gets paid versus what he was getting paid. Because the regular security job, where is out here, gets paid $75. Like, come
Thank
on.
you.
Like, my security eats with me. I don't disrespect him. None of that. A typical Liberian would have went outside and started barking, cussing the man, mom, all of this other stuff. I don't do that with my house lady. And these people don't work to the full capability. You understand what I'm saying? Like, let's be real.
Thank you.
You live in somewhere you don't need a person to come clean your house. You can clean your house by yourself. If my nurse knows she can't clean better than me, but this is just the way we give back to people who don't have the skill set. So,
Thank
like
you.
I said, all right.
Thank you. Befinan, Dekanti, you wanted to go?
Yeah.
Few
Well,
seconds.
George, I think what you describe is an example of an antidote. So you're giving us an antidote of what you do with your security guard, how you pay your security guard, how things function in your household. When I'm talking about a structural issue across a society, the issue of gate boys.
I can't speak about a structural issue across the society when you don't live in the society.
I didn't
That's the
interrupt you.
confusing part with these forums, right? Like, everybody's outside of Liberia, but
I never interrupted you.
One at a time.
I never
One at a
interrupted
time.
you when you were talking. Let's start there. I don't need folks to tell me whether I live in a society in order to have an analysis, especially when I was born in Liberia, grew up in Liberia during the war, have family there, and come to the country and can be able to have eyes to have an analysis of what's happening in the country. So you describing your antidote is the same way that people were saying, well, I treat my slaves nicely. Look at my slaves. They're nice and healthy. They eat. That's not a new notion. First of all, the fact that the security guard has to depend on you for water and electricity and so forth gets back to my issue of capitalism once again, that they have to rely on you being a good person. They have to rely on your heart in order for them to be able to get those things, that they themselves do not control the means of production. So you actually proved my point correctly, that if they were to go to another person, another Liberian maybe, who did not have the same concept that you had, that they would not have access to those same things because they don't control the means of production. So in actuality, everything you just showed me is exactly the point that I am making, right? That this is an issue of systems. So I don't need folks to say, oh, you don't live here, you don't. An analysis is an analysis, okay? I can have an analysis about what I've seen, what have I experienced from house to visiting family members, and the way in which the structures of house boys, gate boys, house girls function in Liberia. And oftentimes those children who come, because I had so many people in Liberia who offered me their children. Here, oh, Pushi, that's my family, call me Pushi. Pushi, you can have my daughter, or let my daughter come, she will live with you, she will work for you. That is often how those things work. And those children come, whether they come to Monrovia or they go to another family home, and the family promises them that they're going to send them to school, they're going to feed them, they're going to give them education, and those children are often still exploited in those homes. And they're dependent on the goodwill and the heart of those individuals in order for them to not see exploitation. That is a system of capitalism. That is what I am critiquing. And you just proved my critique correct.
Thank you. Mr. Tukle, are Liberians lazy?
Yes, we are. And, when I listen to Dekanti talks about capitalism and how it has led to the way people are being treated, the concept, some of the element of that concept is almost universal. It's just the implementation of it might differ from one country to another. But look, you can't separate the way we've lived in Liberia almost going to 200 years, and you want to blame capitalism for some of the things that capitalism has done. I think most of what you describe here, in my opinion, has a lot to do with bad governance and poor leadership more so than capitalism as you described it. Look, I remember, and I think when we talk about laziness, you talk about the amount of able-bodied individuals who are willing to work, who are willing to go out there and work. But just go back, for those of you who are a little older, before the war in Liberia, if you had 10 taxi drivers, 9 of those taxi drivers would have come from one particular ethnic group. If you had 50 Willa Market, 45 of those Willa Market would have come from one particular ethnic group. And why is that? Or why was that? Because of the mentality. We in Liberia, most of the people were attracted to government job, wear suit and tie. Driving taxi was something that, no, I don't think I want to drive a taxi. Oh, me, Willa Market. So you could see somebody, we used to say Fuller people, he comes from Guinea with no money, and within within 2 years' time, this guy has a shop. Before then, he has a Willa Market, he goes around himself. So we are talking about the able-bodied individuals. Yes, in every country there are lazy people there, but I think there are others who argue and say that yes, people were lazy and the war exacerbated that situation. Yeah, there might be some elements of truth to that, but the fact is, now you go to the streets, you see people are entrepreneurial. Some people, and when you look at the percentage of people who are entrepreneurial, who are trying to make life for themselves, who are trying to beat the system, they are just a tiny fraction of the able-bodied people in Liberia, and particularly the young people. There are. I mean, I was shocked. I didn't even know what to make of it. I went to my village and I asked my auntie to cook me dumb boy. I used to like palm soup to eat with my dumb boy, and I gave her $20. When I came, I the next day to eat the food, and I was asking her, how did you guys, the ingredient? What she said to me, we bought all the ingredients from Monrovia, and I was like, really? She said yes. She said, I said, what are you guys doing here? What are the people doing? Are they not farming? She said, nobody is farming here anymore. They've all gone to Monrovia, they've gone to Tubmanburg, and you name it. So the system itself encourages people to be lazy because they are not creating the environment where people will seek something to do something and earn something. So people see these, you work as a security guard or a housemaid or house helper, no matter how you want to describe them. Even that, they go to do it, they don't do it properly. They don't do, I mean, the work ethics is so bad to the point where sometimes, it's just, you cannot explain it. I mean, I remember growing up in a house where we had a house help. And this house help was an elderly man. I remember very, very vividly. This man was an elderly man, probably in his 60s. This guy never missed a single day. He was there 7 days a week. Who knows how much he was even being paid? So when I hear Decon T talking about the people in Firestone, yes, those people are resilient. They are working on a terrible working condition. But if you really drill down on those people, I mean, look at Firestone and other companies. What is the percentage of those people in the overall able-bodied Liberian that can work and able to work? You would be surprised to see that the number is just so. I mean, I don't know what to say, but I can tell you we are lazy because when you go to Monrovia, to Buchanan, to Tubmanburg, Robertsport, you go around and look at the young people, and sometimes if you want to really understand whether we are, because sometimes if you just focus on Liberia, go to other countries that are similar to Liberia and see how the able-bodied there, how hardworking they are compared to Liberia. Then you will get a general sense instead of just focusing only on Liberia. But we are, yes, things are hard. We have bad governance, but there are things you can do that will allow you to survive on a daily basis if you so desire.
Mr. Dukley,
Yes.
you believe that on the average, all right, majority of Liberians are lazy when it comes to work.
Yes.
Are there Liberians that are not lazy, industrious, who you can point to say, yes, even though majority of Liberians are lazy, there are Liberians who are strong and have, the evidence there to prove it?
I can just tell you that there is a certain group, there are a certain group of people where a very significant number of them are industrious. And I can tell you that about the Mandingo people. I can tell you that about the Fula people. And this is no prejudice against other ethnic groups.
Yeah, but Duke, I want to ask you,
Now,
would you not say that's learned behavior? What I mean lazy is, are you physically inadequate, or your your behavior, what you used to practice, what you used to see is learned and you follow the same?
Actually, both, Jimmy, both. Because what you just described.
Let me jump in here. Give me just a good point you bringing up there. The Fulanians. We all know that as they are coming up, they are taught, all right, how to start a business. It's like a lifestyle. Like for me, I'm from the Southeast. My father is a fisherman, so I must say I'm a professional fisherman. That's why he knew. That's why he taught me. Those who went to school will become teachers. Some of them will work in government. Those who are farmers will go on the farm, and then they come. That's why we learn. And so when we lived there, when I lived there, it was part of us. And so the inspiration was, okay, I want to go to school. I want to be educated so I can become this, so I can become this. When you compare that with the Fulanese, parents would teach their children because the children see that in their parents. You got to start a business, and then you the shop, and then another shop. You mentioned the Mandingo people is the same. Some of them, their focus is a business, entrepreneurship. So the trend. So Jimmy is saying this is a learned behavior. So how can you say these people are lazy when they are doing what they were taught, what they learned from the early age? When they are doing it, he said that's laziness. But for the Mandingo people and the Fula people, the example that you gave me, I agree with that example. This is what that is their life. Then you say, well, they are strong.
Yes, but Anthony, not just that. I just used the Mandingo and the Fulani as an example, and there are other areas of work where other group of people are good at.
Mm-hmm.
And you just mentioned fishing, fishermen.
Yeah.
Right. So and also agriculture, you name it. But the point I'm making to you is, and even that it's not that.
When you say those who are in the Southeast, will you say they are strong because a good number of them are fishermen, like my father? We say they are strong, or will you say they are lazy maybe because they come to Morovia and maybe they're not fishing anymore? What will you say?
I would tell you there are a number of them that are very strong and hardworking, but that percentage of people who are strong and hardworking is just compared to the ones that are lazy. The lazy ones are just so overwhelming than the ones that are hardworking and resilient.
And I would like to.
So how do you come to the conclusion? I like that you're coming in. I mean, look at his example. He said that the Fulat man is strong. He's not lazy like a Liberian man, or maybe somebody from the South. Now I see evidence of his strength because he has a shop, and that man does not have a shop, but he has a kingdom though.
No, but Anthony, I mean, let me qualify something here. Yeah. Not every Mandingo person is industrious and hardworking. But I'm trying to tell you, the number of them that are industrial and hardworking is just more than the ones that are lazy and don't want to work compared to other.
He is saying that's a learned behavior. That's how they were brought up. Just as somebody in the Southeast was, they learned behavior is to become a fisherman or farmer. Isn't it?
I disagree with what
yeah, let Langdon come in, please. Mm-hmm.
I'm disagreeing with what he's saying completely, especially when you're talking about Mandingo and Fula people. Liberia has 16 tribes. I'm from Nimba, all right? Mano, from a town right beside called Dingamo, right beside Ganta there. The people produce sugarcane. The war was going in Liberia, but we were producing goods and services that were trading in Guinea and Ivory Coast that were demanding. People used to come from Ivory Coast to buy cane juice over there. People used to come from Guinea. They were very industrial. It's not to do sugarcane job, to produce liquor. It's not an easy job. Trading, let's forget about trading doesn't mean people are successful. The trading the Mandingo people do, the Fula people do. They do a lot of cheating. Even the fish, when the fish is even rotting. And most of the land cases you find in Liberia there, the Fula people, if you take on the percentage, they're one of the major causes. They will know that somebody has property, full land there, somebody build a structure. They will get somebody who is not even the appropriate title and give money to the people for those kind of things. What I'm saying, they got a lot of cooning behavior. I'm not saying all of them collectively. All tribes in Liberia are hardworking. I've seen people in Lofa be industrial. I've seen people cannot be industrial. I'm not saying Liberians are not lazy, but most of the people that are strong and they make ends meet. Let me get that clear on all tribes in Liberia. All right.
So in other words, every group of people have their industrials group, and others are lazy.
Yes.
Okay.
But that's not in dispute, Mr. Langley. The point I was making is, that's what I was saying to you earlier. I said, if just go back, if in 1980 and the taxi drivers were going to go on strike, Monrovia was shut down, Liberia was shut down. Let's say in the transport sector, okay? The transport sector was dominated by a particular group of people. And so you transfer that to agriculture, you find that, in every society, people are industrious, in every tribe, in every ethnic group. But I'm saying to you, if you look at the and I mean, this is not anything scientific, but I mean, just on the general outlook, people in Liberia generally, because you have a high school diploma, because you are probably a college dropout, you don't want to do any job other than office work or something that you think is related to your knowledge that you have acquired, whether high school or look at how we look at high school. When somebody is a high school graduate, he or she, her expectations is not where you see, okay, I want to drive a taxi, or I want to be a Yana boy or whatever. Because you have a high school diploma, you think you are beyond that. Because you're a high school graduate, you think, no, that's not what you should be doing. And when we say laziness, that's where some of the laziness comes in. Because
I might not be cutting you up, but I need to come in. Let's get some things straight. I've lived Liberia post-war. All right? I stayed Liberia. I came to the States 2015. Look, people are not seeing me Liberia to do anything. Academic is not even required in Liberia. Ask my brother who's currently who built a house in Liberia.
Yeah, Mr. Langley, you are not. I don't think you are getting my point.
The guy who lives in Liberia, I'm telling you, that was like some 20, 30 years ago. But Liberia had no post-war Liberia. Ask the fellow that currently live in Liberia. People are very industrious.
I'm not saying they are not industrial. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that.
Before you make your point, that we have a caller on the line. I'm enjoying the conversation. Mr. Kalabu Gonglo is on the line. Mr. Gonglo, you are live.
Yes, good discussion, fascinating discussion, debate. Here, what I was saying, I listened to the panelists. I think everybody is making sense here. I see a couple of things playing here. Implicit bias is something that I'm also observing here across some of the way the panelists are putting the points forth. But as a Liberian, someone who was born and lived in Liberia, they found work, came from a village, a Territani village. Economically, I'll put it this way. Like Mr. Kellen point that all of the tribes are industrial, they are hardworking. Yes, we can take that to be true. not entirely true, but true. We can think it'll be true. But
he says some.
Yeah. Okay. So I think the critical element here is the type of economic activities that people are involved in. The Mandingos and the Fula tend to be nomadic kind of tribe. They move from place to place. They are generally known for trading. Now, they are not farmers, and you all know basic economics. The guys who are making the price you get at the farm gate is lower. When they bring it out, they make more profit than the farmers. I mean, I happen to be somebody who was making making lettuce farm, vegetable farm myself. Currently, I have more than 200 pigs on my farm. I know the guys who come to buy pigs from me, they make more money when they go to the supermarket compared to me who selling the pig to them, okay? Because I'm selling it to them whole. They take it to the market, butcher it, weigh it on the scale, and they make more profit. So, and they know their trade. The patience they have to sit in the market, I don't have that patience. So they make more money than I make. But I'm the one who producing the pig. They buy from me. So so I'm working hard, but the kind of work I'm doing, I'm not getting as much as I should get compared to the person who is a middleman who takes it to the direct consumer. So they make more money, even here in the U.S.
He's a capitalist.
More money, and I think that's the point we need to look at. If you and the money go make more money, we go to them to credit money. Not that they are the strongest, but they understand business, which many other tribes don't understand. I mean, we'll give it to them.
Thank you. All right. He's the only caller for now. And Mr. Ducle, I know you were speaking. He was a caller on the line. I kept him waiting, so I wanted to bring him in because we almost at our 2 hours limit. We have 10 more minutes, so I wanted to bring the caller in. But what I want you to comment on that, Mr. Ducle, so I can get to the other panelists, is that is Liberia a lost cause? You argue that Liberians are lazy in majority, and you also said that some are industrials, and you give your examples. Is Liberia a lost cause?
I don't think Liberia is a lost cause, and that expression "lost cause" is an expression of frustration. It's almost like a cry for help. Whoever says that, whoever makes that statement, he is trying to tell you that he or she is fed up. He or she is beginning to lose it. Liberia is not a lost cause. We are going to get the leader who is going to be forward-looking. We are going to get a leader who is going to have Liberia at heart. And you see, sometimes in public service, most of the time, people who come to public service are supposed to be selfless, who primary objectives is to do something, to help, to be a help to their fellow citizens. So we've been complaining about leadership because most of what we've been suffering from, you can slice it many ways, it will boil down to leadership, and I mean good leadership. And I think there are good men and women in Liberia, and sometimes because of the way our electorate, the way they vote, and I'm not giving up. So I wouldn't say Liberia is a lost cause. It's just that I think when we are able to elect a leader who is going to be someone who is forward-looking, who is going to be someone who has the guts it takes to put Liberia on track, Liberia will be redeemed, and Liberia is redeemable.
All right. Let us close with this. Time is gone. We're left with 7 minutes. Do you see opportunities in Liberia? What are the things when you see in Liberia that give you hope that Liberia can one day become a middle income country, that will solve our issue of roads, We'll solve our issue of education, our issue of health, electricity, and you go on and on. Our issue of poor governance, lack of accountability, and so on and so forth. What are the things when you see, you try to have some hope, and that is what we're going to close with. But let me say this: I'm always in Liberia, and I look at those who are in school today, the young people. And when you talk to them, you look at the output. And then I'm thinking that, okay, these are the people that are going to be leaders tomorrow. These are the people that are going to succeed us. Do they have the foundation to be able to lead this country, to govern this country, to develop this country? That no other person going to come from anywhere. That is the reality. They got to be those, majority of them in Liberia, who would do that. When you look at that and the other opportunities and all that, do you think that it is doable for Liberia? Let's start with you. Deconte, I think your computer is dying there.
Thank you. Yes, I mean, I think that for me, Liberia is a place of possibilities, of hope, right? And I think where I get that from is I see that the conversations, especially in younger generation of Liberians, is starting to change. Especially when we looked at the alliance of the Sahel states and how Liberians are receiving it. I'm seeing the critiques of Liberians online, my own family members who are back home, and how they're understanding what's happening to them, why it shouldn't be happening to them, and how they need to get out of that. So I think that in order for me to do the work that I do, in order for me to continue to advocate for Liberia in the way that I do, I would have to believe that there's hope, right? I don't think that any of us will be on the show constantly that there was no hope. So at the risk of not sounding redundant, because I think everybody has said, enough tonight, I believe there's hope for Liberia. And I think that we have to raise the political consciousness of our people. And that to me is where we begin.
Thank you, Deconte. Thank you so much. We have a caller on the line. I will make exception and give the caller a few seconds here. Go ahead, caller.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. My name is Desmond Finley, and I'm in the chat just talking. But I think the issue we have in Liberia is people can confuse one thing with another. There are certain groups, everywhere you go in the world, there are certain people that just do certain things and they're good at it. That doesn't equate to laziness or lack thereof. And Mr. Duke is making the biggest mistake I think anybody can make intellectually by saying that because Matingo people are the life fixing car, the entrepreneurial, that equates to other people that go to school are lazy. That's the biggest mistake you can make. He also came out here and talk about he had a guy working for him for 7 days. It shows his laziness. There are a lot of lazy things that Mr. Duke said. Even he can comport his argument legally, structurally, that equates to lazy arguments. So talk about Liberian people lazy. I think he's the walking definition of Liberian people being lazy as a lazy person intellectually. And I'll leave with that.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Let's get your closing, Langley, please.
Thank you, Dennis, for the program. I've been following this program for like 3-4 years, and I really like the intellectual stimulation. I say collectively that we must work to make sure our country goes forward. Liberia, like any country that have political and economic challenge, I think that with us working and being honest with ourselves, our country can change in the next 10 years, especially if our governance structure, the judiciary, the executive, and the legislature try to minimize the taxes that they spend on themselves, because I don't say they're spending on Liberian people, and give people basic social services, current, road, water, all right, education, health, agriculture, our country will be better. So we still got a good future if we work collectively, positively.
Thank you. Brunel, you're closing.
Yeah, I believe Liberia has a future. It's important for us not to opt into decisive narratives pertaining to our future and pertaining to our past. And I personally would like to see a Liberia where we can just all agree to disagree or to not agree, however they say it, and push forward and try to create a bit more nationalism in the country, just so that we can have a proper agenda to stick to. And we just need the right people in front of a movement that will actually define what the movement is, define what the future looks like, and let it be people that other individuals are willing to follow, because we can't expect every single person to be a leader. There's a reason they say 85% of this world consists of sheep, the other 15% are go-getters. So we just need more serious Liberians to come on ground, be home, and be the example, take the risk, and create a following, show people that there's a better means of doing anything that you put your mind to, and they might not even fully understand it, but so long you have that it factor, that factor, I believe that people who want better will just follow you and receive better. That's how life is sometimes. I mean, we make our situation seem like it's so unique, but no matter what society you live inside, you're gonna have some of these issues here. It's based on how you look at it, basically. But we get into this habit of just talking in circles, and we don't get anything accomplished. So that's my spiel for the end of the night. I just wish more people would come home, take the risk, and even if you lose, then so be it. At least you lost something with purpose.
Thank you. Jimin?
Yes, I really enjoyed the discussion tonight, because it allows us to look at different perspectives. But I come to this panel with the engineering mindset. Look, if you want a car to go, you have to put wheels under the car so the car rolls down. There are certain things you have to put in place for our nation to move. And it's not, the formula has been taught along many times ago. It starts with the youth. We have to first rethink education beyond the backboards. We must revolutionize our classrooms and centers of innovation and imagination. We have to teach kids not just to read and write, but to sew, to cook at early ages. We have to build a mindset for them that creates, not just consumes. Okay, a lot of people do. All they do is look for government jobs instead of thinking about opening farms, opening tech companies, opening shops. That's the way we have to start teaching them at an early age. And thirdly, I will leave with this: we have to build integrity and patriotism. That culture of corruption we're talking about. We have to start with the youth and teach them that this is vile. This is a cancer. And the only way we're going to change this nation if we put that corruption to death. And along with the integrity you teach them patriotism. They got to know, they have to love their country. They have to have that motivation so they can do great things for us. So the formula's there. It's not rocket science. So why can't we put it together? I'll leave there.
Thank you, Jimin. Our new progressive commentator, you get a last word tonight.
Thank you, Anthony. I think it was a good show. And thanks to everyone for participation. Look, let me just land the academics component to this just for the purpose of our viewers. Now, we understand there are structural, cultural, and psychological factors that may play into why we say Liberians are lazy. Because when we look at the social development culture, for definition of laziness, we look at the productivity, we look at the lack of initiatives, we look at issues that have to do with dependency mindset, we look at poor work ethics, and we look at, avoidance of responsibilities. These are things that Liberians, that cut across Liberians in general. All right. So when we say Liberians are lazy, it's because of these factors. All right. So just in case somebody wants to hold us to that definition of Liberians are lazy set of people. And I'll close by saying this. Listen, 2023, Anthony, access to internet in Liberia was 33.6%. 2024, it dropped to 30%. Our generally speaking, our literacy rate in Liberia is 48%. Generally speaking, the youth we get a 64% amongst the youth. But this is the point, right? Our education is very poor. The quality of our education is very poor. Liberia is a lost cause if we cannot fix education in our country. The education in our country is the turning point for the entire structure of our country in the future. Until we fix education, listen, Yomlikanga can steal, Joseph Boaga can steal, all of them can steal, because we're not going to stop them. Those guys are going to make stealing legal. In fact, if you get a chance, they will pass a bill that said anyone who does not steal cannot be in government. And anyone who comes to stop stealing will not be allowed in government. They could even pass a bill to that. But within their stealing, let us give our kids quality education, because it is quality education that will drive the trajectory from poverty to a better future for our next generation. If we can fix education, whether they steal or not, I will not worry about them, because the educated next generation will know better. And I will end on that.
Thank you.
Dr. Pearson, thank you. Thank you, Jimmy, Deconti, Brunel, Langley, Mr. Dukley, to our esteemed viewers, those who watch us on Facebook and YouTube. We want to say thank you. This has been a very sober discussion about us as a people. Dr. Pearson, you close on a very strong note. The argument you guys are making is that when we're talking about laziness, we're looking at productivity. We're looking at innovation. We're looking at people taking initiative, people volunteering, all right? People seeing a condition or a problem and doing something about it. Leaders seeing a challenge and rolling up their sleeves to make sure that challenge is removed because of the impact it will pose or it poses to the people. These are your arguments. So yes, there are some Liberians who are lazy. By every stretch of imagination and definition, they are lazy. Equally so, I believe there are Liberians who are very strong and industrial. I have seen some. I work with some. And I know some for a fact. Our leaders, a good number of them, 99% of them are lazy. And that is my argument. But look, you said it right. If we are not to be a lost cause as a nation and people, our human capital is where the focus needs to be. Who's going to be president tomorrow? Who's going to be lawmakers tomorrow? Who's going to be teachers tomorrow? Who's going to be doctors tomorrow? Those are the ones we see in the classrooms that are empty today. We all see some classrooms. We all see some school buildings. When I see that, I'm hopeless. So where is the foundation that guarantees that this nation will not be a lost cause? If you look at the future, you can only predict the future by looking at the realities of today. The conditions of today are the catalyst for the future that you are hoping for. It's not just your hope. But I'll leave it there. I don't want to preach. There has been a sober discussion, and I appreciate all of you, the panelists, for coming with your disagreement and agreement where you saw fit. Thank you so much. My name is Anthony Sie, and the song that closes the broadcast says, "We are all Liberians." And until we catch you again another time, enjoy the song, "We Are Indeed All Liberians," and bye-bye.
We are Liberians. Liberia is our home.